Welcome to Roughly Enough Items. This mod adds the ability to easily search for what an item is used for in both mods and vanilla. Now, before we get started, I want to clarify a few things. The first is that there are several mods that are all generally the same thing that have been ported over to various versions. This includes too many items, just enough items, and of course, roughly enough items. You can watch this video for any of those mods and it will be exactly the same unless I say otherwise at some point in the video. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started with the basics. Let's say that we just found a new item and we have no idea what it's used for or if it's useless. In our case, let's pick a piece of redstone. If we hover over the item and press the hotkey U, we can see the uses of this item. As you can see, we can see what is crafted when using this item, as well as we can use the various tabs at the top to see what happens when we put this item into other machines, such as a brewing stand or an industrial centrifuge from the mod Tech Reborn. Now let's say we want to go the other way. Let's say that we want leather, but we aren't sure if there's a better way to get it instead of killing cows. We could search in the search bar at the bottom of the screen the word leather, and then simply left click on the piece of leather on the right, or press the keybind R. This will show us how to get leather, such as crafting it with rabbit hide, or using a chemical reactor from Tech Reborn. Now that we know how to find recipes, let's use this new process to speed up crafting. If we have the items we need in our inventory for a recipe, we can click the item on the right side of the screen, and click the plus sign to bring these items from our inventory and place them into the crafting grid. Then we can simply grab the item out of the crafting table to craft one item of that recipe. We can also hold shift when we are clicking on the plus sign to attempt to craft as many of that item as we can based on the amount of items we have in our inventory. It's also worth noting that if we're ever missing an item from the recipe and we hover over the plus sign, a red box will appear around the item that we are missing. Now, what if we have several items that we want to craft, but we don't want to keep searching them up? We can simply hover over any item that we want to save and press the keybind A to save it to our bookmarks on the left side of the screen. In Roughly Enough Items, we can also click and drag an entire recipe and save that to our bookmarks. If we want to find an item inside of a chest or inside of an inventory, we can double click the bar at the bottom and type in the item that we're looking for to find it. If you ever want to minimize all of REI, we can simply press Ctrl and O and it will minimize it to save some screen space. Now that we've gone over the basics, let's go over some more advanced things that we can do. The first is that if we want to search for all items by a certain mod, we can do this by typing the @ symbol and the mod name, such as @TechReborn. We can also search for tags by typing the $ before a tag, such as $logs to search for all logs. If we want to search for something with spaces, we can place the entire search inside of quotes. If we're looking for recipes that have apples or logs, we can search apple, vertical bar, $logs, and it will return both of these searches. If we want to search a tooltip, we can use the pound symbol, then the tooltip name, such as #protection for any protection items. If you ever want to export a recipe as a PNG, we can hover over a recipe and press F8, and it will export this recipe as a PNG into the REI_exports folder. Now, let's go over configuring the appearance of REI. If we hover over the crafting table on the bottom of the screen and then hover over search field position, we can change the search bar to the bottom middle, bottom right, or top right. We can also do more advanced configuration by hovering over the gear, then display settings, and changing various settings in this section. The last thing to go over is the cheating section. You can enable cheating if you have cheats enabled, are in creative mode, or are an op user on a server. You can then hover over the gear and click on cheating to enable it. This will allow you to left click on any item in REI to get it, or shift left click to get a stack of that item. You can also drag items into REI to delete them. If you click on the plus sign in the bottom left, you can add buttons to your REI, such as changing your game mode, changing the weather, or changing the time. Now that we've gone over the base mod, let's go over add-ons that I highly recommend. The first is the Roughly Enough Professions mod. This mod allows you to determine which work tables are required for each villager. You can do this by pressing U on a villager spawn egg or an emerald, and then left-clicking the Professions tab. The other one is Roughly Enough Resources. This mod will show you what blocks spawn at what heights in the world, and you can use this by clicking on an ore and then looking at the Overworld Generation tab. This mod also shows you what is dropped by entities by right-clicking on an item and looking at Entity Loot Drop. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to check out the video below covering the entirety of the mod Tech Reborn.